Welcome to A Name in Heaven Ministries. Today's show is titled, Are You Kind? The reason I have chosen this subject for today is because I see a global population that is becoming more and more cold, harsh, and vicious. Today's mindset in people in general couldn't be much worse than it already is today. I could give you one horror story example after another, but that would be so ugly that I don't even want to pollute your minds with the harsh ugliness of it all. I have decided it's time for all of us to evaluate how we treat others and how we feel about others. Even if you keep your mouth closed about your opinions or your feelings about others, your feelings and opinions show on your facial expressions and in your actions, even when you try your best to conceal them. And keep in mind, our Heavenly Father sees all the way into our kidneys, so we can't hide our true feelings from Him. Let's look at our Heavenly Father's instruction at 1 Peter 1:22. 1 Peter 1:22, seeing you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that you love one another with a pure heart fervently. Now what did God say here? Love one another with a pure heart fervently. And what does fervently mean? It means having or showing great warmth of feeling, intensely devoted and earnest, to have and feel compassion. So here our Heavenly Father is telling us to feel this way towards others. He is instructing us to feel intense warmth and compassion and love for others. Now I'm going to prick your conscience here. Do you feel intense love towards others? For people who are different than you are, for people who are poor, for people who are rich, for those who are less intelligent than you are, for those who are smarter than you are, for those who are less fortunate than you are, and for those who are more fortunate than you. Do you feel this intense love for all people? This is instruction from our Heavenly Father that we all need to ask ourselves on a daily basis. In every situation, wherever we are, wherever we go. Because this test is put before us on a minute-by-minute and day-by-day basis. Let's look at our Heavenly Father's instruction at 1 Peter again, 4:8. 1 Peter 4:8. And above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Okay, there's that word fervent again. God says to have fervent charity for others. And what did He say this fervent charity has the power to do? He said this fervent charity has the power to cover a multitude of sins. Now, is there anyone out there who doesn't have a multitude of sins that could use some covering? I'm going to answer that for you. No. Each and every one of us are full of sin, or to use a more descriptive phrase, full of imperfections. We all need all the help we can get when it comes to our imperfections, because when you look at God's original state of perfection, and then compare that to any of us today, we are far from the original perfection that God intended for mankind. As a matter of fact, we are all quite a mess compared to God's original plan and purpose. So we can use all the sin covering we can get. Do we have intense charity towards others? Do we ever do anything for anyone other than ourselves? Do we ever do anything for our family members? Do we ever do anything for our own children? anything for our neighbors, anything for people who we work with, anything for our community. Do we ever do anything for a community that is not our own? Are we givers or are we takers? When you look back at your life, do you see a generous, giving person, or do you see a lifetime of self-indulgence? Me, I type people are the most depressed people I have ever seen. They depress themselves. The only thing they are capable of thinking about are themselves. The only people they feel love for, feel empathy for, and feel compassion for are themselves. And these types of people are miserably unhappy. And when you try to encourage these types of people to think of others, they cry and say, "But what about me?" There is great joy that comes from within when you feel love and generosity for others. The more you feel love and generosity for others, the better you feel inside. Love and generosity fills the heart. It overwhelms the brain with positive endorphins. And you cannot buy this kind of joy and happiness. This kind of joy and happiness comes from deep within, and that joy stays with you for a lifetime. This is not a short fix or a feel good for a minute type of drug. This overwhelming full feeling of joy and happiness stays in your heart forever when you are a loving and generous person. Our Heavenly Father created our hearts to be this way. When we follow God's instruction, we are living in harmony with our bodies, our minds, and our hearts, and we feel good as we walk through this life. We feel overwhelmed and full of joy and happiness all throughout our days. Are you kind to your family members? When your children come home from school each day, do you greet them with a big smile and a big hug? When your children make a mistake, such as a bad grade, or hit a foul ball, or miss a hit in sports of some kind, or forget to clean their bedrooms, are you patient and forgiving and loving about it? Are you kind and patient with your parents when they make a mistake or get on your last nerve? Do you greet your parents with a big smile and a big hug when they walk in the door? It is important to remember that we all have bad days at school and at work. Everybody needs a big smile and a big hug from those who love us on a daily basis. Are you kind to the other students at school? Or are you only kind to the students who you find popular? Have you ever walked up to the most unpopular person at school and said something like, to be kind or encouraging to them? Have you ever walked up to the most popular person at school and said something kind or encouraging to them? Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, it is just as difficult to be the most popular person in school as it is to be the most unpopular. No one has it easy in school these days because people have deviated so far away from godly thinking, behavior, and direction in today's world. Are you kind to others in the workplace? Or are you only kind to those who are the most popular? Are you only kind to the employees who the bosses like, and hurtful and rude to those whom the bosses do not like? Are you fair, kind, and professional with all the people you work with? Do you spend your work days gossiping about others? You do know that gossiping destroys the reputation of others. I know that you know that. How do you think our Heavenly Father feels how do you think our Heavenly Father feels about you when he sees you gossiping about others? Whether it is true information or not, gossip is hurtful and vicious and destroys the reputation of innocent people. Even if the gossip you are spewing is true, when it comes to gossiping about another person for any reason, the person who is being gossiped about is the innocent victim in God's eyes. regardless of what that person has done to be victimized by your hurtful attention. If you are gossiping about another person, you are in the wrong no matter what the subject matter might be in that gossip. Do you spend your workday politicking? I have found that most people wear themselves out in the workplace politicking. Their every move and utterance is an attempt to manipulate and be liked by the bosses and the people they perceive to be the important people. Your bosses may love this behavior in you, but your Heavenly Father hates this kind of phony, dishonest, and hurtful manipulation. And I can assure you, impressing our Heavenly Father is going to get you a lot further than impressing your boss. A wise and professional boss will not tolerate this kind of behavior in his staff. However, over the years, I have had bosses who encourage and feed off of this kind of treachery. Even if you do have this kind of treacherous boss, it does not make that kind of behavior okay for you. Are you honest in all things in the workplace? It's another thing you need to ask yourself on a daily basis. Are you kind to all people at church? Or only the ones who are dressed to par? Are you friendly to the congregation members who are poor or who have a lower income bracket than yourself? Or are you only friendly with those who have high incomes? Are you loving towards those in your congregation who have a different skin color than you do? Are you entangled in politicking in church? Are you always trying to get in good with the pastor and his wife? Are you always trying to get in good with those who appear to be spiritually strong and influential in the church? When you enter a church, the first thing on your agenda should be, who can I encourage today? Should be your first thought when you walk through the doors of a church every Sunday, or every Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday, whatever days that you go into church for various reasons. It should be the first thought that comes through your head when you walk into church every day. Who in my church may need help is what you should be thinking. Are any of my brothers and sisters having financial problems, marriage problems, car problems, transportation problems, spiritual problems? You should ask yourself when you walk into your church, who needs my help today? Offer to clean the house of a single parent. Babysit for a single parent. Bring over a pre-cooked meal for a single parent. There is no end of things you can do for your brothers and sisters. Most people have a need of some sort. I can guarantee it. Many years ago, when my wife and I were married, we belonged to a very influential congregation. My wife and I were very young, and we were just starting out in life with marriage and a family, and we were by far the poorest family in our congregation. One Sunday morning, a new family came to our church. They had moved to our state from Iowa, and the reason the man moved his family was to seek work, because he had lost his job, and they had been through many years of poverty. They stuck out like a sore thumb in our wealthy congregation. As soon as they walked in, everyone in the church was in a tizzy. With gossip, talking about how the man and his wife and their 6 children were dressed. Who were they? Where on earth had they come from? And what on earth were they doing in their church dressed so shabbily? Snickering and giving the entire family dirty looks, and looks of unwelcome and unfriendly stares. My wife spoke with the wife and mother of the 6 children in the coat room, and found out all that I just shared with you. It was the dead of winter. It must have been 10 degrees below zero, and the mother and a few of the children didn't have coats. Only a couple of the congregation members spoke to the family that day, and that was only to find out where they came from and what they wanted. After leaving the church that morning, my wife and I were talking about this family and all of their hardships, and we were both angry and appalled at how our congregation had received them. My wife said, "Rickie, isn't there something we could do for this family? It is the dead of winter and they are without coats. They are all going to be sick." I said, we are the poorest family in our church. We can barely keep our bills paid and food on the table as it is. After some discussion and thought, we came up with an idea that we would take money from our grocery budget that week and go to the Goodwill store and buy used coats for all of them. Needless to say, my wife found beautiful coats for all of them at low prices that we could afford. We found out where they were living and went to their house the next day at 5 o'clock in the morning and left the coats in bags at their doorstep, so they would not feel embarrassed or ever know who gave them the coats. The following Sunday, the entire family arrived at church in their new coats, and all of their coats were fit like perfect. There was a crowd of women surrounding the wife, oohing and ahhing over her beautiful coat, as the wife told all the women how someone had left bags of coats at their doorstep and how grateful they all were. And I must say, those coats were very attractive. You would never know they were cheap and secondhand. Excuse me. The act of kindness and generosity on our part warms both of our hearts to this day. And at that time, we were by far the poorest family in that church. And we were the only ones who did anything for them that I know of. I'm pretty sure nobody ever did anything for them. A few years later, such an act of generosity would have been very easy for us to do. But the fact that we had to make a big sacrifice to purchase those coats that day has always made that act of generosity so much more meaningful to us. It wasn't the amount of money that was important. It was the fact that $25 was a lot of money for us at that time. Brothers and sisters, I promise you, if your first thought as you walk into church each Sunday is, who can I bless today? Your life will always be full and blessed with love and friends and God's blessings all the days of your life. Please remember, brothers and sisters, to ask yourself every day, have I been kind to everyone today? Everyone in my family, everyone at work, everyone at school, and everyone at church. Ask yourself that every day. Are we kind and loving with our words each day? It's another thing we need to think about. Do we say our words in a kind and loving way to others even when we are stressed? Our words can cut like a knife and sting like a whip. And our words can also bring joy and be uplifting to a heavy heart. Just depends on how we choose to use them. How do we use our words each day? It is estimated that men use 7,000 words per day. Brothers, how do you use those 7,000 words each day? Are they harsh and cold, or are they kind and loving? It is estimated that women use 20,000 words per day. Sisters, how do you express those 20,000 words per day? Are they harsh and cold, or are they kind and loving? At the end of each day, I'd like you to ask yourself these questions. Do I feel an intense love for all people, including those who are different than me? Am I a generous person to all the people I can be? Am I a giver, or am I a taker as I walk through this life? How much time did I spend thinking about myself today? Was I kind and loving towards my family today? Was I kind and loving towards all the people at school today? Was I kind and loving towards everyone in the workplace today? Was I kind and loving to everyone at church today? Did I use all of my words today to hurt and maim others, or to heal and embrace others? Today's show was titled, Are You Kind? If the answer is no, then you have some work to do. Today's questions need to run through all of our minds often throughout our day in every situation. Brothers and sisters, thank you for watching today's show. Be kind and loving to each other and go in peace rejoicing.